Nobody Beats the Whiz want to remind you, it's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are? The 10 o'clock news starts now.
We thought we'd be watching the Yankees slide home with a World Series win. Instead, we've got a plane sliding off the runway at LaGuardia. And it's all got to do with the nor'easter. Good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining us. The best laid plans of Bomber fans went down the drain today. Mother Nature had other plans for this evening.
Well, that's for sure. A powerful nor'easter smashed into the tri-state region, dumping record rain and churning hurricane-force winds. The storm was extremely dangerous and spared no one. A Delta flight from Atlanta skids off the runway at LaGuardia Airport as its landing gear collapses. Miraculously, there were only minor injuries. Powerful winds snapped trees across the region. One Long Island boy is killed by a fallen tree. And traffic, in a word, is nightmarish. Some highways are underwater and thousands of smaller streets are even worse.
Well, where did the storm come from and when is it going to end? Joe's here with the First on Fox forecast.
Well, right now the storm is still, believe it or not, to the southwest of us. That's where the center of the low pressure is. But the good news is it eventually will be going away, but not for a while. It's moving very, very slowly. But there is good news. There is light at the end of the tunnel because the very heavy rains and the very strong winds will be ending. Let's take a look at the Doppler radar right now. And I'll show you where the rains are right now. They're mostly to the north of us. And put this into motion and we can see that the rain's moving in from the ocean now. Most of Long Island still getting very, very heavy rains, but the city and south in New Jersey, it seems to be clearing up. But get a load of some of these tallies. 5 and 41 hundredths of an inch at West Orange, 5 and 24 hundredths of an inch at Staten Island. And if you think that's bad, look at these wind gusts. 80 miles an hour at Fire Island, 60 miles an hour at Rocky Point, and 62 mile an hour winds at Staten Island. So the heavy rain and wind will be letting up after midnight. About 50 in the city, upper 40s in the suburbs, with the winds later on dying down from the northeast at 10 to 20 miles an hour. But we still have a wind advisory in effect for New York City and a high wind warning in effect for Long Island until the morning hours. What about tomorrow? Well, I'll have complete details in the full forecast coming up a little bit later. Back to you now.
Okay, thank you very much.
All righty. Well, today's nor'easter was bad for everyone, but out on Long Island, it turned deadly for a little boy out there. Una Kwan is live right now in Lindenhurst with that very sad story. Una?
Well, Linda, we are at the Rainbow Center, and in addition to the little boy, there have been many other people affected. 40 families have sought refuge, at least at this shelter, from the storm. There has been flooding and evacuations along both the north and the south shores, and power outages galore, 25,000 in Suffolk, and at least that many in Nassau County as well. Getting back to the little boy, there has been at least one storm-related death. 12-year-old James Cummings was standing in the driveway of a friend's house in his neighborhood. He was waiting for a ride, apparently, when a tree uprooted by very nasty, gusty winds fell down on top of him, crushing him. Uprooted trees and down power lines, a huge problem all over the island. Gusty, whipping winds. The winds also knocked trees off leaves. Those leaves have clogged drains that contributed to the extensive flooding in low-lying coastal areas. In Bayville on Nassau's North Shore, families were evacuated, shelters set up. The wind also held the water back in the bay, unable to get out to sea. It flooded the land, and there has been lots of local flooding, especially on the roads, making those roads very treacherous. The good news is the tides have dropped a couple of feet in the last couple of hours. But there may be more flooding around the corner. There is anticipated problem when the tides come back up. That is along the south shore. The next high tide is at 1:30 and the north shore around 5:30. So to recap here, at least one storm-related death, a 12-year-old Babylon boy killed by a falling tree. I'm Una Kwan live. Back to you.
All right, Una, thanks so much. A tragic story out there tonight. Now our Christopher Jones is standing by live right now at LaGuardia Airport, where a plane skidded off the runway earlier this evening. Chris.
Melinda, it was Delta Flight 554 from Atlanta arriving here at LaGuardia in the middle of a fierce nor'easter with driving rains and wind gusts up to 60 miles an hour. It had all the makings of a tragedy. Fortunately, it turned into a miracle. The Delta MD-80 jet was making its approach to LaGuardia Airport in the middle of a severe rainstorm at about 4:40 in the evening. The weather was treacherous. and the pilot came in extremely low, actually clipping landing lights in Flushing Bay.
It appears that out in the bay coming in, it hit some of the light posts. Its gear, landing gear, did not work or collapsed. The plane slid down the airline, down this runway 13 here, spun around.
There were 5 crew members and 58 passengers aboard the flight from Atlanta. This woman was traveling with her husband and infant daughter.
The pilot came on, he was very shaken, and he said, you know, please stay in your seats, you know, keep calm. And then we started smelling fumes, and we went to the exits, had to slide down the, you know, chutes that they have.
You had the baby with you.
Yeah, I was hanging on to her, and there were people down there. They caught us when we came down.
As you can tell right now, the weather is still fierce. When this plane landed, it was facing east, but it spun around and did a 180 and is now facing west. Authorities still don't know exactly what caused this, but initial reports seem to indicate the plane landed so short it clipped the pier and knocked out its main landing gear. All in all, everyone aboard this plane is very lucky to be alive. The NTSC is taking over the investigation to determine exactly what caused this accident. But the initial indications are the pilot seriously misjudged the landing. There was just one injury, a minor one, sustained by a passenger as she slid down the evacuation slide. Repeating, all 63 people aboard that plane were safely evacuated, only one minor injury, but it is a safe bet every one of those passengers will remember the night they cheated death at LaGuardia Airport. By the way, one of the passengers was NBC sportscaster Greg Gumbel. LaGuardia is expected to be closed until noon tomorrow. I'm Christopher Jones, Fox News. Back to you, Linda.
All right, Chris, thanks so much. What a trip for those people.
And what a night it has been. Now to the Garden State, where all across New Jersey coastal towns and communities, the watchword has been flooding. It was ankle deep or knee deep, and in many cases, it was actually fender deep. Eric Glasser has been suffering through the storm. He's live down in Wayne, New Jersey with the very latest there. Eric.
Suffering is right, Steve. It has been one ugly day here in the Garden State. If you take a look down here right now, you can see this is what we've been talking about. In every community that we have visited up and down the coastline today has basically been the same thing. A lot of rain, a lot of flooding. Some places turned into, wow, look at that, I'm losing power as we're on the air. Some places having a lot of trouble, other places just totally flooded out. Basically in New Jersey today, a day fit for neither man nor beast. Heavy rains have plagued New Jersey throughout the day. Flash floods shutting down highways like Route 35 and Route 36. This mobile home park in Hazlitt was submerged. In Middletown, a veterinary hospital was 4 feet underwater. Workers and police teamed up to rescue about a dozen animals trapped by the rising floodwaters. Further south in Seabright, a combination of high tides and relentless rain turned streets into canals. On Surf Street, the surf was up. And at the Knee Deep Cafe, it was, well, knee deep. Dozens of homes were waterlogged.
I had like 4 or 5 inches of water in my house. Nothing was really destroyed of mine. I pretty much lifted it all up before.
From Chopper 5, the scene doesn't look much better. Route 46 closed. Wayne, New Jersey, badly flooded. And in Edgewater, the rising water forced evacuations. In places here like Little Falls, the problem is obviously the flooding, but in other places it has been power outages, trees down, you name it. It has been a rough day in New Jersey. Reporting live in Little Falls, I'm Eric Glasser, Fox News. Back to you guys in the studio.
All right, Eric, take care. Thanks for that report. As you can imagine, there are a lot of power outages tonight. In central New Jersey, GPU reported more than 28,000 customers in the dark as we speak. In Westchester County, Con Ed reports more than 11,000 customers without power. And on Long Island, close to 61,000 Lilco customers still don't have any power. The storm's heavy winds sent power lines crashing onto cars and across streets in Staten Island. Many lines also came down as tree limbs snapped. On Hinland Boulevard, a main Staten Island artery, flooding forced drivers to move slowly. In Yonkers, just crossing the street to mail a letter required a lot of effort due to the driving rain and fierce winds. Local traffic moved, but drivers had to be extra cautious. And near an entrance ramp to the George Washington Bridge in northern Manhattan, it's as if cars were going for a swim tonight. There is normally poor drainage in this area, but it's especially bad when drenching stormy weather hits the region. Traffic moves smoothly on the Bronx River Parkway, which is slippery when even a light rain falls there. The parkway's sharp turns can frazzle any good driver.
And now a look tonight at the tri-state traffic with Bernie Vider.
Some major headaches this afternoon, and it's still pretty bad out there. Right now, crossing the Upper East River, the Triborough Bridge remains closed to and from Queens due to an earlier tractor-trailer accident and fuel spill. Bronx-bound Whitestone been reopened. However, there's about an hour delay there. Throgs Neck Bridge as well has been reopened, but anticipate some very heavy traffic. FDR has been a mess. In fact, it remains subject to closure in its entire length due to some very serious flooding conditions. In Queens, westbound on the LIE at Utopia Parkway, that's completely closed. The eastbound side, one lane is able to squeeze by heading through that flooding condition. And in Westchester County, not without its problems. Hutchinson River Parkway completely closed in both directions between the New York City line and the Cross County Parkway. Further north, it's closed from North Avenue and Wilmot. Back to you in the studio.
All right, thanks so much for that tonight.
Well, we're going to turn now to the Bronx.
You can plan on it because now we show it on the 8s of every hour. Local on the 8s on the Weather Channel.
The average funeral today now costs over $4,000, but the most Social Security will pay to your survivors, if they qualify, is only $255, leaving your loved ones to pay the balance. If you're age 50 to 80, you can protect your loved ones with Montgomery Ward Life's Mature Life Plan. It pays cash expenses at your family's time of need.
It's important to know my wife or kids won't be burdened.